like to introduce the folks from Jacksonport. Rob Hults. Rob has been fascinated by nature and the outdoors since early childhood. As an adult, he volunteered at the Schlitz Audubon Nature Center in Milwaukee and was offered the opportunity to work with their Sky Hunters group doing education programs with birds of prey. He soon fell under the spell of these magnificent animals and decided to make a career of working with them. He founded the Open Door Bird Sanctuary in Door County in 2010. That's near Jacksonport, right?
Just south of Jackson.
Yeah. Today, Rob is the executive director of ODBS and is in charge of caring for their resident birds as well as doing public environmental education, which you are about to experience. Amy Hults is a lifelong resident of Door County. Raise your hand. Growing up third generation on Cherrydale Farm. She is currently a certified veterinary technician at Peninsula Vet in Sturgeon Bay. Amy has been working with birds of prey since 2014 and is a primary person in the care and training of the 14 avian residents of Open Door Bird Sanctuary. She is also the volunteer coordinator for the organization. There's a hint for you. So, welcome to Bob. Take over, Bob. You can. We had them here a couple of years ago and did a wonderful job, so you're in for a treat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, wow, this is a great turnout. Thank all of you for coming out. I know it's not me you came to see, and probably not Amy or Greg Urban, one of our volunteers and raptor handlers at the sanctuary. What did you guys come here to see today? Birds? Any particular kind of birds? Any old birds? Gee, raptors, okay, excellent. Well, we certainly, if it was any kind of birds, geez, I could have brought a robin or something with me, but no, we brought some pretty cool birds today for you to meet. One of the things while we are doing our program, once the birds have a comfort level in this area and comfort level seeing all of you, the handlers may choose to walk amongst you with the birds. So be very thoughtful, make sure that aisleways are open and clear that they can come through or they won't walk over by you. Make sure you don't reach out, keep flash pictures to a minimum if possible. So just think about the birds' safety and comfort, because today you guys are all going to be trainers of our birds of prey. And what I mean when I say that is, every experience that these birds have is part of their training. And so if they have a positive experience here today and nothing frightens them or anything like that, they'll be happy to go to the next program next time. So, you know, the experience that you help create for these birds is what they will remember when, you know, we get them ready and ask them to step into their travel carriers to go to another program. So I'll thank you all in advance for good behavior and being good bird trainers for Open Door Bird Sanctuary today. So with me, like Dale mentioned, my wife Amy Hults and Greg Urban. One of the cool things about Open Door Bird Sanctuary, I'll tell you a little bit about us. We are a private, nonprofit organization located just south of Jacksonport in Door County, over on the quiet side. And our organization is not only a private nonprofit, we are fully volunteer run. We take care of 14 birds of prey at the sanctuary on a daily basis. We have 33.5 acres. It's a beautiful, beautiful sanctuary. We have 33.5 acres there, and everything is done by volunteers, building our structures, maintaining our beautiful hiking trails. All the education work that we do, feeding and caring for these birds, is all done on a voluntary basis, which is pretty darn cool. I'm the executive director. I'm still a volunteer at the sanctuary. So wonderful place. So And like Dale mentioned, my wife Amy is the volunteer coordinator. If any of you have any interest of volunteering for a wonderful organization and get a chance to get even a little more up close and personal possibly with these birds, we have a lot of information over at the table back here in the center there, so please grab some literature. We've got opportunities, all different kinds of opportunities for volunteering with the organization and at the sanctuary. We are open to the public during the summer months. Every summer Saturday, we are open to the public. We do a cool 1-hour bird show in our little outdoor amphitheater. We are open from noon to 4 every Saturday, and then there's a couple extra days. We've got some rack cards back there that'll tell you when we're open. We also, starting kind of middle of last year, we started doing private tours 7 days a week out at the sanctuary. So if you're not able, or you have family in town that are coming up to this area to visit and you want to do something really fun, but it doesn't happen to be a summer Saturday when you're available and you'd really like to come out to the sanctuary, we do private tours out there 7 days a week. So you can talk to me, and we've got information on the literature about that too. So another very cool thing. So what was that you guys came here to see today? Raptors. Oh, nice. Raptors, yes. And you guys have been, you're all bird fans, which is awesome. That's, the Algoma bird celebration is a wonderful thing. And, celebrations and festivities like this are starting to pop up all throughout Wisconsin, this area, all over the Midwest. It's really wonderful to see people showing their appreciation, showing their choice to learn a little bit more about these awesome animals, which are birds, because the more everybody learns, the more we're going to be good stewards of the environment and plant trees, plant flowers, plant our yards, do things that help care for the environment and care for the birds and the rest of the animals that live there. So, kudos to all of you for coming out today, because it's really cool to be seeing this type of interest. Birds are amazing animals, and I'm a little bit biased, but I have to say they are my favorite animals in the world. I love birds. Birds are very unique. They're different from all other types of animals. Can somebody raise a hand and tell me what you think makes a bird different from other animals? How is a bird different than a deer or a fish or a turtle or a mouse or a dog or a cat or a human? What do you think makes a bird different? They can fly, yeah. If we were outdoors doing this program today and I said, everybody look at the bird, I bet you'd all look up. Not too many people would look down, because when we think of a bird, we think of flight. So, yeah, are birds the only animals that can fly? No, there's lots of animals that can fly. But what makes a bird's ability to fly? What gives them the ability to fly? I see a hand over there. What helps a bird fly? Say it real loud. Their wings. And what's on their wings? Feathers, yes. One of the best answers, if somebody ever asks you what makes a bird different from other animals, there's lots of really good answers. You could say hollow bones. You could say egg laying. You could say, having a beak instead of having a mouthful of teeth. Lots of things make a bird special. The best answer was what that guy over there said, feathers. And because there are other animals that lay eggs, there are other animals that have some hollow bones, there are other animals that have beaks on the front of their mouth instead of actual teeth. Only birds have feathers. The only animal. So if I'm wandering around in some strange place in another part of the world where I've never been, and there's all these odd animals around that I've never seen, and I have no idea what kind of animals these are, but I spot one that has feathers on it, I know it's a bird. I know for sure that animal is some kind of bird. And birds, they are very special animals. Hollow bones, I mentioned that. Everything about a bird is about being lightweight. And because of their choice, their ability to fly. Do all birds fly? No, all birds do not fly. Penguins and ostriches and little cute kiwi birds and a lot of those birds, they don't fly. Do all birds have wings? Yes. So even if a bird doesn't fly, they still have wings. Even some birds that have been living on the ground for tens of thousands of years, and it looks like they don't have wings, they still have little remnants of wings on their body. And birds that don't fly, that have wings that are very visible to us, they use them for ornamentation, they use them for mating and mating rituals, they use them for defense, a lot of different things they use their wings for. Penguins use them for swimming. That's how they propel themselves through the water and steer and things like that. So, birds are pretty amazing animals. And we have some pretty special type of birds. So before we start talking about those, we're going to jump up a notch from kind of garden variety, everyday birds, all birds. We're going to talk about birds of prey. Who knows what a predator is? What do you think? One of you guys tell me what a predator is. Somebody over there. Go ahead.
A predator is something that eats like other animals.
Exactly. So a predator is an animal that catches other animals and eats them. So when you think of a bird of prey or a predator, you think, oh, whoa, not used to this microphone thing. Usually I've got a big enough mouth, I don't need a microphone. When you think of a predatory bird, you think of hawks and owls and falcons and eagles. So not all birds are predators. They're not all birds of prey out there. Is a beautiful bird that is here all year long. I love to see him around my bird feeders, a beautiful red cardinal. Is that a bird of prey? What do you think? That side always has a comment. This side doesn't say yes or no too much. Is a cardinal a bird of prey? Not at all. No. You guys are bird people. So what's the little gray bird that shows up at our bird feeders in the wintertime, in the late fall and winter, and then they leave again in the spring? Kind of the opposite of what we think of migration. What do you think? Chickadees, they're here all year round. Those little gray ones, I heard it over here, juncos. One of my favorite signs, I love the different signs of the seasons. Juncos, they hang around our feeders all winter and then they migrate away in spring. Are juncos birds of prey? Bird we see around our house all the time, cardinals, juncos, no, not birds of prey. What's our favorite sign of spring? What bird? Louder. Robins. Are robins bird of prey? Oh wait, now this side says yes, and this side says no. Are robins birds of prey? Yeah. Robins hunt for other animals. They pull big old worms. They eat fruit and things like that too, but they pull big old juicy worms out of the dirt, which is an animal, and they eat them. So a robin is a bird of prey. What about a great blue heron? Is that a bird of prey? Yes, it is. What about a woodpecker? Yeah. Have I just changed your opinion a little bit on what birds of prey are? When we think of birds of prey, it's always hawks and falcons and owls and stuff like that. But in the truest sense, a bird of prey is one that hunts for other animals. And woodpeckers do that, and great blue herons do it, and robins do it. Lots of birds are actually birds of prey. So a robin or a woodpecker or a great blue heron, how do they catch their food? What tool do they use to catch their food? Their beak. Yes, their mouth or their beak. So the birds that we traditionally think of, and I'm going to have Amy start getting our first one out because we're going to move into the birds pretty quick here. The traditional birds that we think of as birds of prey, when they catch their prey, their food, what do they use? What do you think? Somebody yell it out. Their feet, yes, they use their feet or their talons. So what we think of as birds of prey are actually called raptors. They are birds of prey. They catch food, they eat meat, that's all they eat for a living, but they use their feet to capture their prey. And the term raptor is an old Latin word, and it means to grasp or to seize something. And that's how they get their name, raptors, because they use their feet. Somebody back there is excited. So we are going to start out. We have technically we have 4 raptors and one kind of bird of prey that is not a raptor with us today. So we've got 5 birds along today. So we're going to kind of go through them. Like I said, and for those of you that have arrived a little bit more recently, we are going to be bringing the birds out, and we are going to try to walk among you with the birds if they're comfortable. So I will ask that aisleways stay open so that the bird handlers can walk through, and you'll get a good chance. If the aisleways aren't opened up, then the people in the back won't get a chance to see the birds up close. So our first bird that you are going to see is a true raptor, and it's a nighttime bird, a nighttime nocturnal raptor. Here she is. My wife Amy, and one of her favorite birds in the world, and that bird's name is Radar, and Radar is a barred owl. And Amy is Radar's favorite handler. So these two have quite a bond that they have formed over the years of working together. These birds, each one of them has a very different and very unique personality. And they do very much pick and choose which handlers they're the most comfortable working with and which handlers they prefer not to work with. So this is Radar. I'll stop for a minute. So if you imagine, I'm going to talk a little quieter here. If you imagine you have owl ears and your hearing is so ultra sensitive that you can hear a mouse from 100 yards away underneath the snow, my big loud booming voice is probably not very comforting to Radar when she goes past those speakers. So Radar is a native barred owl. It's the second most common owl that we have here in this area. The most common owl that you can find in Wisconsin, in this area, in fact in all of North America, is the great horned owl. This is the second most common owl we have in this area, the barred owl. One of the big differences you'll see, they're very similar in size, but the great horned owl is what they call a horned or a tufted owl. They've got those ear tufts up on top, and you'll get to see one of those horned owls a little bit later in this program. And this is what's called a tuftless owl. They do not have those cool little ear tufts up on top. And even though they're called ear tufts, it has nothing to do with their hearing. We'll talk about that when the bird with the real ear tufts comes out. So Radar, all of the birds that we have at Open Door Bird Sanctuary are all birds that have been injured in one way or another in the wild. Radar was born in the wild, raised by her parents, lived independently out in the wild. She was the victim of a car strike. But more technically, more accurately, the car was the victim of a radar strike. She flew into the side of a car. She was chasing prey across the road. The prey made it across the road. The car got there, so did Radar at the same time, and she was so focused on that prey animal running across the road that didn't even pay attention to the car coming, and she ran into the side of the car. That gave her detached retinas that impact with the side of the car. So Radar can see, but not real well. Not good enough to be a hunter out there in the wild, and have to catch mice and things like that in the dark of night. Very, very challenging for an animal that's perfectly healthy, but geez, if you've got some physical deficiency, like your eyesight is poor, you're not going to last out there very long. One of the really cool things about barred owls is the habitat that they love to live in. we don't see a lot of barred owls in the wild, even though it's our second most common owl that we have in this area. We don't see a lot of them. Great horned owls, it's not that uncommon to see them, but barred owls don't like to live around people. And their preferred habitat where they like to live in the wild is swamps and wetlands. And I know when Amy and I go out hiking on a beautiful, warm spring day, neither one of us says, hey, let's find the closest swamp and go hiking. You know, we don't get into the territory of these owls very often, and that's why we don't see them a whole lot. They love to be around water. You know, so living around the Great Lakes and being in an area like this is awesome for a bird like this. And in the summertime, you know, living around water, they love to live in swamps and wetlands and things like that. The food that they normally hunt in the summertime, you know, most of these raptors, the birds of prey, you know, that we think of, most of them are looking for food that's wearing a fur coat. Hawks and owls and stuff, they're looking for fuzzy stuff to eat. In the summertime, a barred owl like Radar is not looking for fuzzy things. She's looking for slimy things. So they love to eat salamanders and frogs and snakes and newts and toads. Living around water and being so comfortable around water, they're one of the very, very rare owls that will actually go into shallow water to get prey. So they will go into shallow water and catch small fish, big tadpoles, things like that. Not anything where they can't touch their feet, but up to about 6 inches of water. They'll go right in the water to catch prey, which is very, very unique. Thank you, Amy and Radar. So did you guys see Radar looking around and turning her head? How far can an owl turn its head around? Who has an idea? It's an awful long ways, that I know. What do you think? How far can they turn their head around? All the way around. Any other ideas? What do you think? 240 degrees, a little bit less than 3/4. Well, technically speaking, an owl can turn its head all the way around once in its lifetime. But it's the last thing it will ever do. If they want to do it again and again, an owl can turn their head 270 degrees, 3/4 of the way around. So here's I'm going to step away from the mic for a minute and back up here a little bit. Here is your audience participation part of the program. So everybody reach your hand up and kind of bend your head down a little bit and feel those bumps in the back of your neck. Feel those back there? What are those? Vertebrae. Those are your neck vertebrae. Does any anatomically intelligent person out there know how many neck vertebrae we have? Nice. 7, correct. We have 7 vertebrae in our neck. How many vertebrae does a mammal have? How about a mouse? How many vertebrae in a mouse's neck? 7. How about a dog? 7. You guys are getting it. Okay, trick question. How about a giraffe? 7. All mammals have 7 vertebrae in their neck. Doesn't matter if you're a big mammal, little mammal. Doesn't matter if you're a whale. A whale has 7 vertebrae in their neck. Owls have 14. That's what gives them the ability to turn their head so easily and so far around. And owls have to have that. If my head is, somebody holds my head in a vise. Who remembers the Addams Family with Uncle Fester? That was one of his, all the old people raise their hand. He loved to put his head in a vise. If somebody put my head in a vise and I wanted to look around, I could move my eyes. I could look left and I could look right and I could look up and I could look down. I could see different parts of the room in front of me. If you put an owl's head in the vise, they would only have one view. An owl cannot move their eyes. They are fixed in their skull. Can't move them. So they need to have some ability to turn and look in different directions. So that little chatterbox you're hearing back there, we are going to move from a nocturnal hunter, which means somebody that hunts at night. We're going to move over to what's the big fancy word for an animal that is active during the day? So if nocturnal is night, what's daytime? Diurnal, yes, very good. So diurnal is a daytime active animal. Nocturnal is a nighttime active animal. We are actually going to flip things completely. We are going from an owl that everything they do is about quiet and stealth and slow and patient. We're going from a nighttime animal to a daytime animal. We are going to one of the speed demons of the raptor world. We are moving into the falcon family. And there he is. That was that little noisy guy you heard back there. And for those of you who are wondering, that is the call of a merlin. We have 3 different falcons. Hi, Percy. We have 3 different falcons that you will commonly see in this area. We have merlins, which most of the merlins migrate past this area and nest up in southern Canada because merlins are migratory birds. They will migrate south to central part of the United States and southern United States, and then they head back up to southern Canada for nesting. Our habitat along the Lake Michigan shoreline, everything from Algoma up into Door County, has such wonderful natural habitat that we have nesting merlins in this area. It's pretty cool. They don't go all the way, a lot of them don't go all the way up to Canada. They'll stop here and nest because of our environment is so pristine here and so well kept, and there's mature trees and there's stands of trees. There's a lot of prey for them to eat. So we do have nesting merlins in this area, which is very cool. So we have the merlin is one of the 3 falcons we can see. The peregrine falcon, people here in Algoma know about them. We have them up and down the coastline quite a bit. And then the 3rd falcon is the most common falcon you'll see in all of North America, and that's the kestrel. So we have 3 different falcon species that we'll see here naturally. This one is in the middle, bigger than a kestrel, smaller than a peregrine falcon, but still packs a punch, powerful little animal. They are bird hunters in the wild, as most falcon species are. They hunt for other birds. Merlins aren't quite as fast as a peregrine falcon. Peregrine falcon is the fastest animal on the planet. Does anybody know how fast a peregrine falcon can go? I hear some people saying 200, and you're correct. A peregrine falcon can go well over 200 miles an hour. The fastest one ever recorded was 241 miles per hour. And that was an actual verified speed. They took a trained peregrine falcon that was a falconry bird that worked with a teammate, a human teammate, to go hunting and things. They took him up in a hot air balloon a couple of miles up in the sky, and they tied an altimeter to his leg, a little digital altimeter onto the little anklet that he had on his ankle. And then out of that hot air balloon, they threw his very favorite toy out of the balloon. And the peregrine falcon was looking over the edge saying, "Hey, that's my toy." And they waited quite a while till the toy was long gone, and then they released the peregrine falcon. And that falcon went into a full high-speed dive to catch his toy before he lost it and down on the ground somewhere. Hit a speed of 241 miles an hour chasing his toy. Yes, he did catch it. So they're amazing animals. Now, merlins like this, like Sir Percival back there, they don't travel at speeds of 240 miles an hour. They can actually do about half that, though. They can travel at speeds of 120 miles an hour. Very, very, very fast. And their bodies are designed to do that. Radar that you saw out here just a moment ago, that beautiful big barred owl. their bodies are not designed to go that fast. If radar tried to go 120 miles an hour, you would see a big cloud of feathers and a naked bird pop out the other side. You know, their body is just not designed for speed, but you look at the body that Percy has, his feathers are all very tight to his body. His shape is very, like rocket shaped or bullet shaped. Long pointed wings that he can generate tremendous amounts of speed with, and a long tail, long wings that help him steer at those tremendous rates of speed to catch other birds to eat them. A lot of other things that are real unique when you're looking at a bird and you know it's some type of raptor and you think, Jesus, is this a hawk? Is this a falcon? What is it? There are some things that will help positively identify that it's a falcon. When Amy's walking around with Percy, take a look at Percy's feet. They are huge. Falcons have extremely long toes, long talons. I mean, just way out of proportion with the rest of their body. Very long. They're not strong and powerful like hawks or owl feet are, but length gives them the ability to use those toes like a net to capture a bird in midair. Short, powerful little feet are for catching mammals. Long, kind of spidery long toes are for catching animals that move quick and they're hard to grab. So they've got these amazingly long toes. All falcons have those really long toes with the exception of one species of falcon, and that's the American kestrel. Other signs of a falcon, it's kind of hard to see on Percy, but those of you that like studying and looking in books and things like that or going online, look at a falcon's head and face. Every single one of them will have black lines underneath their eyes. If you look at a picture of a kestrel, man, it's just as clear as day. We have a kestrel at our sanctuary named Ginger, and boy, she's got those just jet black lines under her eyes. Percy has them, but they kind of blend in with the rest of his coloration a little bit. But if you see him, you can see there's dark lines under his eyes. Who else has dark lines under their eyes? Some people are trying to get rid of those dark things under their eyes. No, I heard it over here. Football players, baseball players, soccer players. It blocks the sun, yeah. So if we put they used to use lamp black underneath their eyes, and it stops the sun's glare from reflecting into our eyes when we're outside on a sunny day. People are pretty darn smart, aren't we? We figured that out 100 years ago. If we put dark stuff around our eyes, it helps cut the sun's glare. Mother Nature put that on every species of falcon tens of thousands of years ago. All falcons have that because they're hunting during the day. They have to react to small things at very high rates of speed, and any little advantage they have helps them survive in the wild. Those black lines underneath the eyes of a falcon are called malar stripes or malar streaks, M-A-L-A-R. Every falcon has them. Just an amazing adaptation for their lifestyle and the way that they hunt in the wild. You'd never know it's springtime when the hormones are full raging in these birds, would you? Percy is just all excited. Yes?
What was Percy's injury?
Oh, great question. Like you said, all of these different birds have a different reason. Many of the birds that we care for, their injuries came either intentionally or unintentionally at the hand of man. Percy's life was actually saved by people, and his injury was very natural. He was found in north central Wisconsin as a fuzzy little chick. He was just in the process of growing his main primary feathers out, wing and tail feathers and covert body feathers. He was found on the ground by some hikers. There was not a nest anywhere that they could find anywhere around. So not finding a nest around that they could maybe put him back into or know that he was being cared for by parents, they did bring him to a rehab center. We suspect he was probably grabbed from the nest by another predator who was going to carry him away and feed them to their young, and he got dropped, he got lost, something, and survived that incident, but then he was starving to death when he was found. And because of the starvation, which at the rehab center, they did bring him back from starvation, but because of that starvation, that long period without food that he had, he actually started molting out the feathers that he was growing. He molted out his wing feathers, he molted out his tail feathers, right in the middle of growing them out. Because his body knew if you put energy into growing feathers, you're going to die really fast. You don't have food to eat. And so when he came to our sanctuary from the rehab facility, they knew they couldn't release him. They didn't know if he would ever get feathers back again. They didn't know if he would get feathers back soon. It might take a whole year when a bird would normally molt and then grow all new feathers in, because his wings look like little chicken wings. I mean, he had no feathers on him. His tail only had a few feathers left, and they were mostly broken off, the ones that he had. They were weak and small, and he wouldn't have survived in the wild. But Amy and I started working with him when he came to our sanctuary, and we started feeding him all of the really good, nutritious food he could possibly eat, and we also did flight training with him. I know it sounds kind of silly. Well, you have a bird with no feathers on his wings. How can you do flight training? But we started flight training with him, and he would go about this far from Amy's glove to my glove and back and forth, and he'd get his little chicken wings going. But we hoped that by giving him all this really good food and stimulating this need to fly, this desire to try and fly, that whatever switch turned off when his body said, get rid of all those feathers, you can't afford to have them right now, we hoped we could turn that switch back, and his body would say, you need those feathers right now. 2 weeks from the day that he arrived at Open Door Bird Sanctuary, we saw his first new flight feather growing in. It was a shot in the dark, but it worked. We were very lucky, and so Percy actually does have a perfect set of feathers today. Unfortunately, all of that length of time that he had since he was just a little chick around human, and he had to have intensive human care when he was starving, he's way too comfortable around people. So if you released him, he'd survive out there for a while. He may be able to hunt a little bit, but he would want to hang out with people all the time, and for bird of prey, that's not a good way to go, because he won't last very long. All right, I am going to step out and get our next bird. So we're going to go back to the kind of couch potato world of birds. The next bird's going to be a real special treat to see this next one. It's not a bird you will see here in this area. You won't see it in Wisconsin. You won't see it in North America. The next bird is going to be a Eurasian eagle owl, the largest species of owl in the world. Kind of a special treat we brought here for you guys to meet today. His name is Ashling. There are a few in North America in zoos and aviaries and things, and Ashling is the offspring of a pair of breeding Eurasian eagle owls from an aviary in Oregon. And when they do breed, they're actually very prolific breeders, even in captivity, and when they breed, they need to find a home for the young ones, or they will be overrun with those little owls. So they've tried to find a good home for them to live in, and fortunately, Open Door Bird Sanctuary was chosen for a place for Ashling to live. So, and we won't sing, but this is Ashling's 5th birthday was about 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to get my glove out, and we'll get Ashling out. I'll see if I can do both here so you guys can hear me good. So just for a moment, he's used to my voice, but he is not used to it on a speaker. So for just a moment, I'm just going to talk loudly while I talk about Ashling here. So this is Ashling. He is a Eurasian eagle owl, and you'll see
remember I talked about a horned owl versus a tuftless owl and one that doesn't? So this is a horned owl. They are a very, very close cousin to our great horned owl. In fact, this is Europe and Asia's version of a great horned owl. So you'll see he's got, hey, there you go, I want to startle you, there you go. So you will see he's got these big, tall ear tufts on his head. Right now he's just got to kind of back because he's not sure about you guys and he's never seen this place before. But big, beautiful eyes, and one of the things, when Amy was bringing radar for you to see up closely before, did you see the color of Radar's eyes? Just almost jet black, just dark as dark could be. That indicates an owl that only comes out in the deepest, darkest part of the night. When you look at Ashling's eyes, he's got a beautiful kind of colored iris. Eagle owls, Eurasian eagle owls have orange irises, so that's the color of his eye. No, so you can really get a good idea on how they can turn their head around so far. We talked about some of the things that make birds so special and unique, and this, like I said, this is the largest species of owl in the world. Ashling is on the smaller end of the scale because he's a male. Male birds of prey are always smaller than female birds of prey, or raptors. A female might be as tall as I am, sitting on my glove like this now. So knowing that this is the largest species of owl in the world, seeing the size of this bird, this is a pretty big owl, how much do you think this bird weighs?
Not much.
3 pounds.
Any guesses? 3 pounds?
7 pounds.
7,
10.
4?
10.
So this particular bird weighs about 4 1/4 pounds. That's it. You would think, sometimes people guess 20, 25 pounds. I mean, you think of a dog that's this size, or different animals that you look at and you see this size. It's like, wow, that's a heavy animal. Yeah, Ashling weighs about 4 pounds, a little over 4.5 when he's chubby. So a big female can weigh up to 8. I mean, they're huge. They're really big. But this tells you how big. There's those long, powerful talons, big, strong feet. Remember I mentioned that the falcons don't have real strong feet? These guys are hunters of things in fur coats. They hunt for other mammals. And so their tool that they use is they just squish the animals till they don't move anymore. So that's what dispatches their prey. I have really strong hands. I do construction work for a living. Ashling is a little warm. That little panting you see, it's like a dog. They don't sweat like people do, so when they get a little bit warm, that's how they cool down a little bit. So just like a dog. I have really strong hands. I do construction work for a living. On a doctor's meter, the most I have ever squeezed in my life was 26 pounds of pressure. Ashling, as well as most large owls, has about 200 pounds of squeezing strength in his feet. I have 26. 200. That's how powerful their feet are. Just amazing. If you're a bunny and you get caught by a great horned owl, you're not getting away. Yep, that's pretty much it. Like I said, these guys are very similar. The call you hear him making, like all of the large horned owls and many other owls, this is a type of hoot owl. When we're little kids, we learn about owls. What does an owl say? Ooh, ooh. And that's what we're taught since we were tiny little kids. Not that many owls are actually hoot owls. It's a smaller percentage than 50% of owls actually hoot. These are one of them. In almost every European language, this kind of owl is called an uhu, because that's their call in the wild. Uhu, uhu. And just a kind of a 1-2 note call. We have 2 types of hoot owls here in this area. We have the great horned owl, and we have the, there's that call. Well-trained bird, what you say. We have a great horned owl, and we have a barred owl that are hoot owls in this area. owls can be hard to see in the wild, but you can. We hear them all the time. You can positively identify which type of hooting owl it is by listening to the cadence of their call. So a barred owl, like Radar that you saw with Amy before, their call has a specific cadence to it, always. And it's a hooting call, and so we put words with it. And the words are, who cooks for you, who cooks for you all.
The United Methodist Men.
So that's the call of a barred owl. So when you hear that call, you know. A great horned owl has a little bit shorter cadence to their call. They say, I'm awake, are you? Ooh, 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 ooh. That's usually the one that you hear if you're anywhere around, suburbs or out in the rural areas and stuff. Usually it's a great horned owl, but you can positively identify that owl just by hearing its call, and then you know exactly which owl you have in your neighborhood. Very cool. Hi, bud. You getting warm? Yeah. Warm. Any questions about ashling or some of these owls? Yes?
What do you have to feed the owls? Is it meats or vegetables?
Great question. What do we feed these owls? All of our birds are 100% meat eaters. And all of the food that none of the birds get fresh fed live animals. It is very cruel for the prey animals, and it's not good to feed captive animals with live prey. It's not good for them at all. So everything that we feed these guys, we have to purchase, and it is sent to us. We get it, the UPS guy comes every couple of months and brings big boxes full of rats and mice and quail and rabbits and things like that. The reason we have to purchase it because we have to know how the animals were raised, what they were fed. Birds are extremely, extremely susceptible to toxins and things like that. We have a lot of neighbors, our sanctuaries out in the country, all of the houses around us are old rickety farmhouses. We have lots of neighbors that say, hey, I could trap you 10 mice every night for you to feed to your birds. I would love it because then we wouldn't have to pay for all of those. But unfortunately, I don't know if those mice have ingested pesticides, herbicides, mouse poison, rat poison. Those get fed to our birds and can kill our birds. So we can't take that chance. Everything comes to us fresh frozen. We thaw it out the night before, whatever our feeding schedule is for that day, and that's the food. So I'm going to get Ashling put back in his travel carrier.
So we are going to stay in the world of nocturnal, crepuscular raptors, birds of prey, and we are going to go from the largest species of owl in the world to one of the smallest species of owl in the world. About that big. So next bird you're going to see is a northern saw-whet owl. Oh, great question. So just going back to the all raptors and how females are always significantly larger than the males are. It's just the way it is, and there's a lot of scientific reasons and really cool practical reasons, but I only have about 7 or 8 minutes left, so I can't get into all of them. But then the follow-up question to that was, are males and females different in coloration? They are not. One of the things, there is one species, I mentioned that kestrels' feet are different than other falcons. One other thing that makes kestrels very unique in the world of raptors is that male and female kestrels have completely different coloration. It's one of the very few raptor species that you can tell boys from girls just by looking at them. All right, here we go. So here is our next raptor guest, and Greg will be bringing her around for you to meet. This is Coco, and her full name is Kokoko, Kokoko, and that is a Native American. It's from the Ojibwe language, and it means owl. So we shortened it to Coco. Oh, she's giving me the eye. So as you guys look at this little bird, she is, head around that way, Greg. She is tiny. She is small. She weighs in at a whopping 3 ounces. She weighs about 3 ounces. Don't let the size fool you, though. She is a hard-wired killer. If you are a bug, or you're a moth, or you're a little small mouse, you're still in a big trouble if this little saw-whet owl runs across you. Believe it or not, saw-whet owls are migratory. So although they're common here in Wisconsin, they do pass through. We do have nesting saw-whet owls in this area. A lot of them are similar to the merlins, where they'll head to the far central and southern Canada to nest, but we do have nesting saw-whet owls here. The most common time you will see them is in the spring and fall when they migrate through. Very little was known for a long time about these little saw-whet owls. They do not like to be around human habitation. They do not like to be around people. And so we didn't know a whole lot about them, and we knew they left. They left in the wintertime when it was cold, but they have started doing some amazing banding programs with these owls, through the DNR and through people that have licenses to do banding on these birds. And one of the very unique things is when they decide to migrate in the fall, they usually do it en masse. These banding stations will set up their mist nets. They may get 15 or 20 or 30 of these little ones in their mist nets in one single evening. It's amazing. When they go, they just go, and they all go in groups. And so they've actually been able to do some banding and studying. And the average distance that these guys migrate is about 900 miles. And they will fly across the Great Lakes. So you think of it, you look at that tiny little bird and know that owls are not great flyers. They're not made for distance flying. They're not made for powerful flight. They're slow, gliding stealth fighters. But these tiny little birds will actually fly all the way across the Great Lakes in their migration, which is just amazing. Like I said, if you are a large moth, you would make a great meal for a saw-whet owl. If you are a small mouse, you would make a great meal for a saw-whet owl. So they are hunters in every sense of the word, but not just meat eaters or carnivores. They are also insectivores. They like to eat bugs and things like that as well. We do not raise insects for them, no. They get them as occasional treats, but no, we don't. So yeah, these are just amazing little owls. You'll see the powerful feet in that. One of the common owls we have here, the other really small one that you can see in this area is the screech owl. And that would be like, they're 2-3 times the size of this, even though they're very small, but they're a horned owl. So the screech owls have the little ear tufts on their heads. The little saw-whet owl is more like radar, does not have the little ear tufts on her head. All right, thank you very much, Greg. So how did Greg do, you guys? This was his very first off-site program. Awesome, thank you, Greg. So yeah, Coco the little saw-whet owl, just an amazing bird. If you guys knew her personality, she is a golden eagle in a body about this big. A lot of personality, just as an excellent little education bird. And that's the other part of our mission at Open Door Bird Sanctuary. The first and foremost part of our mission is to give a home to birds of prey, to raptors that could not survive on their own in their wild. We do not yet do rehab at our sanctuary. It's in our future, but we're just not being an all-volunteer organization yet at this point. We're still not set up for doing rehabilitation. So these birds have all gone through rehab, and then when it is realized that because of their injuries, they could not ever survive in the wild, then they need to find a home for them, and that's what Open Door Bird Sanctuary it is. It's a home, and for all of the birds you're meeting today, it's a forever home. So Unfortunately, these birds cannot be trained to fly better or be rehabilitated to be released. It's a forever home for them, and they will stay at our sanctuary. But in exchange for a really good meal plan and a really good health care and all the things that we offer these birds, they work for us a little bit, and they come out and do programs like this. And so last year, I think we did 80 or 85 programs, education programs, and hopefully a little bit of entertainment programs throughout the state. In a couple of weeks, we're headed out to Madison to do a program out there with our birds. So, it's really a wonderful opportunity to do this type of work and meet all of you folks and have you guys meet these amazing animals. I'm going to get one more bird out before our time is up.
Native to this area. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, our turkey vultures are all coming back from their migration, or a lot of them have. I feel sorry for the turkey vultures that come back this time of year, because I don't know if you guys know it, but birds migrate for one of two reasons. Some birds migrate because they can't find the food that they need in the wintertime here in this area. There's a big stretch. There you go. Now you get that awesome wingspan. So a lot of birds will migrate because they can't find the food resources. Some birds migrate because they're not cold tolerant. We in Door County, we have robins that stay there all year round. I'm guessing you might have some around here too. They can go along the lake shore where they find open water and flip stones over and get bugs and little crustaceans and things to eat. They can find berries. Robins are very cold tolerant. They leave because they usually can't find enough food up here. Vultures are the opposite. Vultures migrate because they are not cold tolerant. They don't do real well in the cold temperatures. So when I see all of those guys that have that urge to come up this far north this time of year, when it's still so cold up here, I feel pretty bad for them because they're pretty chilly. It's not real comfortable for them. But Amber, she's pretty comfortable because she actually has indoor housing. So she gets to hang out at warm temperatures. I'm going to walk around with her a little bit while I talk so you guys get a chance to see. Yeah, vultures are scavengers. We tell everybody when they come out to the sanctuary, Amber is a bird that we free fly at our sanctuary on our show days and things like that. Everybody says, geez, I'm kind of scared. Won't she get me? Look alive. You're fine. These guys don't hunt. All they eat is carrion. They scavenge. That's all they eat. They don't hunt. And their body is designed. I talked about the kestrel or the merlin and how their bodies are designed for the way they hunt, the way they get their food. And owls, the big, soft, fluffy owls are designed that way because that's how they get their food, with stealth and quietness and things like that. These guys are designed for the way they get their food. You saw that amazingly huge wingspan. There's only one bird in the world that can fly as efficiently and effortlessly as a turkey vulture, and that's a gull. The second, and a very close second to that, is a turkey vulture. Turkey vultures can literally fly for hours without flapping their wings. That's how advanced their ability to glide and ride thermals and do things like that. They're amazing flyers. And one of the reasons that they have to do that is because as a scavenger, they can't proactively go out and catch something to eat. An owl can go out there and say, well, I'm going to go to my favorite tree and wait for a mouse to go by and I'm going to catch and eat it. A vulture cannot go sit in their favorite tree and wait for a dead deer to walk by. It ain't happening. So these guys don't know when their next meal is going to be. It's only when they find it. So everything about them is designed to conserve energy. Flapping your wings takes a lot of energy. If you can glide and ride thermals for hours and hours and hours and never flap your wings, you're not using much energy. And they're all designed for that. You see this awesome beak that she has. Hi, show everybody the big beak. You'll see a hole right through her beak on top. That's kind of her nose, but it's really not really her nose. It's called a perforate nair. It does two things. Number one, turkey vultures have an extremely developed sense of smell. They're one of the only birds that does. Most birds have no sense of smell at all. Vultures have a very good sense of smell. In fact, that's one of the main ways they find their next meal is by their sense of smell. But when you're gliding around at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, if air is just blowing right at your nostrils, it's not efficient. It's hard to smell things that way. So that big bridge that she has over her nostrils, with a little hole through the middle of it, it's called a perforate nair, and that allows, when she's flying, just the right amount of air to get to her nostrils, which are underneath that, so that it gives her the optimum ability to smell as she's flying around. And also, if you think of what they do when they find some food, it's gross, it's carrion, it's dead stuff. Well, they don't like to eat the sour meat, the tainted meat. They rip the carcass open and they go in for the freshest stuff that's been preserved on the inside. They like fresh meat. They don't like old rotten meat. I can offer Amber something that's, you know, the meat's getting a little gray. She's like, no way. No, we like our steaks well hung sometimes. These guys would turn their nose up at that. They like the fresh stuff, which is inside. But to stick your head inside of a carcass and get meat out, you're putting your head in a bunch of gross stuff. And if you had tiny little nostrils that were exposed all the time, they get plugged up like that. So she's got this cool bridge that protects her nostrils when she's rooting around inside of a carcass to get the good fresh meat out. She's got that awesome bridge over her nostrils that helps protect them and keep them clean. So basically it makes it easy for her to pick her nose. You'll also see another one of those adaptations of having almost no feathers on top of her head. You know, that's another thing. The top of your head's the hardest thing you have to clean. And so if you're getting it extra dirty by going inside of carcasses all the time, well, over time they just lost those feathers, and you look at vultures all over the world and you know it's a vulture right away because there's no feathers on their head. All right, I see I am well over our time here, and I know the next group wants to get set up, so I would like to thank all you guys very much for coming out to the Algoma Bird Celebration. It's a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful event. Thanks so much for inviting us out here.